because they feel like it's a burden to others. They don't want to trouble anyone. But what I had in mind was that
Sometimes it's very hard to say anything to those who are uh, going to lose a loved ones. But then, well, how was it like during the early days, like the immediate 2-3 days after the passing to the funeral, and also to, let's say, the first 100 days?
When my father passed away, I was actually very young, so I don't really remember much how we deal with it, except that we really had to move on.
What would you like to say to those who are like going through this period lah, of having the passing of a loved one? What would you say to them?
so, these are little things that you can do to support someone who's going through this kind of difficulty. Again, not everyone can.
So before I get the guests to introduce yourself, maybe just a bit of background on why I thought of having this episode, this topic, because I felt like this topic is not talked about often, like in our everyday conversation. I don't know, is it because of a cultural thing, being in Southeast Asia or Malaysia, this side? But I felt that I think a lot of people think this topic is quite a delicate topic to talk about. And because of that, then a lot of us, especially myself, I felt like I didn't know what to do or what to say when being around near someone who has a family member that have passed away. So only when it happened to me, then only I understood better, like, oh, how does it feel like, and what is the effect of what people say to those who are grieving. So I thought having this conversation with especially a few of us, all of us here who have also experienced passing of a loved one that is very close to us, hopefully this can give some insight to others who wants to know. Then hopefully when the time comes for them, they would be better prepared, or at least they know what to expect lah. And initially I thought of doing this as like a video of me talking about it, but then I felt like I had feedback lah of the previous videos that I made, that I my voice is very good at sending off people to sleep. So I thought of having like making it a conversation with other friends lah, with others. So thought of having this podcast with a few of you, with all of you here. So yeah, let's have a bit of a self-introduction. Maybe you can share what is the story of the passing of your loved ones. So like what's your relationship with the deceased? Feel free to describe as much as you are comfortable or are willing to do. And yeah, what are the cause of death, and how was it like for you and your family, or your immediate family? Maybe I can start first. So my name is Sheng Jie, and back in May 2nd May 2023, my daughter passed away, and the cause of death was in the death certificate. It's septic shock, secondary nosocomial pneumonia, underlying patent ductus arteriosus in failure. So she had a heart condition where there was an extra valve, and she was in queue to get the valve operated on, but then she was not able to what you call this, uh live long enough to undergo the procedure lah. So her name is Aluna, and she passed away when she was 1 year old and 1 month. So we just got back from a family trip to my in-laws side. My wife Anne is from Laos, so we were able to make that trip lah to Laos, and I thought that this time it was a very different kind of pain, I would say, because my father also passed away when I was 27 years old. That was about 7 years ago, and so I know what it feels like to have a passing of a close family member. But then when my daughter passed away, I felt like it was a different kind of pain, and maybe I will talk a bit more about it in the next video when I planning to have one with my wife and to talk specifically about the passing of my daughter lah. It's for our own memory keeping, but also I think we would like to share with those who wants to know lah online. So we were able to be there all the way to the end with Aluna in the hospital in the ICU. So my wife and myself and my mother was there to be with Aluna until her very last breath. And yeah, I think I will stop there first and then invite who would like to go next.
I don't think anyone wants to go next. Okay lah, I'll go lah. That will be very awkward. Yeah. So my name is Dylane, and I'm going to share the story of my mother, and her name was Kim Po. So she was in Malaysia at the time when she was firstly misdiagnosed with pneumonia, and at the time I was actually away in the UK. So I finished my master's and I was staying on for a bit to travel. So I wasn't there with her when the first incident of, her sickness started to manifest itself. But I received news from my family that, mom was not well. So she was having this cough that was just there. They did some chest x-rays and they found that there was something in the lungs, like some kind of mass or liquid. So initially they thought it was pneumonia. They sent her to the hospital, and she was receiving treatment for about 3 weeks for pneumonia, which was obviously not the case. So the whole time I was away, I was just in touch with the family, and we were sort of saying, oh, it's okay, she'll just get treated and she'll be fine. But when I came back to Malaysia in early November of 2016, this was when there were some family friends who said that if the treatment is not working, we should probably get a second opinion on this. So they took her to another hospital, and they did a biopsy just to see what was going on. So it was as they had, the doctors at the hospital had actually sort of suspected it was lung cancer. And in fact, the lung cancer was in its final stage already by then. So what they also discovered was that it had spread to other parts of the body. So there was a tumor in her brain, and that was also one of the reasons why while she was in the hospital for pneumonia, she started to have difficulty in writing messages to me or even to read, because it was pressing on a certain part of the brain that's responsible for language. So it was a blow to the family, obviously, because it was what we had feared initially, but the doctors in the first hospital did not confirm that it was cancer. They said it was pneumonia. So by that time, stage 4, it's already almost too late to do much. And we also know that lung cancer is usually very hard to treat. So with cancer, it's also very different for each individual. They needed to check if the cancer cells would react to certain kinds of treatment. And when they checked my mom's cancer cells, they were resistant to any kind of chemotherapy, so it was not possible to actually do anything about it. So one of the things that they wanted to do was to just try and reduce the swelling in the brain. So they gave her steroids, and they also gave her a few rounds of radiotherapy to just shrink the tumor in the brain. So when that happened, that actually helped her a little. She was able to sort of read, and that was something that she really wanted to do because she was very frustrated with herself not being able to express herself. So one thing that she wanted to do was to read prayers, and she couldn't read during the time that she had lost her ability. So when the tumor sort of shrank a little, she could read, and she was able to write a message. So one thing she wanted to do was to make sure her will was prepared. So she knew that she didn't have much time left. So she expressed what she wanted in the will. And she also took time to write a post on Facebook, just to sort of, maybe it was a parting message. I guess she knew that she didn't have much time, but she wanted to just thank all the members of the family and the friends for the love and the support. So she was able to do that before it got worse. And her condition sort of declined quite quickly. So from diagnosis of cancer in November of 2016, she passed away on the 2nd of February in 2017. So that was about 3 months. And so I had only about 3 months with my mom after I'd been away from home for more than a year. And it was kind of it wasn't the kind of return to Malaysia that I had expected because I wanted to be back home with family, and really, celebrate. But then, I got back, and it was just a blow of, things happening just a few months in a row, and that was it. So, I think I can stop here at this point, but I just wanted to say, like, initially we were actually praying for a healing, and we were asking friends to pray for a healing, and we were saying a lot of prayers, thinking about how to hopefully get her to come home and be with us. But at some point, because her condition was not improving, we also were quite practical about it. We said, it's not likely that she can actually make it back home, considering that she could barely move. At that point, it was very hard to breathe. Even getting up to move to the bathroom or wherever was very difficult. She would be very tired easily. So at some point, we decided, we just pray for God's will and let it be. So we just started to change the direction of our prayers, I guess. And within a week or so, that was when she was released from her suffering. Yeah.
Sumay, I already introduced your name.
Oh yeah. Thanks for introducing me. Actually, I was thinking, who do I want to talk about? Like, I think I experienced my grandfather passing and a few close auntie, uncle, and then my father and then my grandmother. So then I was just thinking maybe I just talk about my father and my grandmother because that's like closely related. So when my father passed away, I was I think quite young. So I don't really remember much detail. I think I was around 12, 13 years old. And I think one thing that I I don't remember much like the difficulty around it. Maybe there's more which my mom will remember. But what I remember was that the moment before my father passed away. So he passed away from lung cancer as well. That
Oh,
he because of his work environment. So and I don't remember much the details of the passing, but what I remember was that moment before of the passing. Actually, that was what uh has a lot deeper impression on me lah. I remember that the day of his passing, I actually didn't go to school. So I just don't know why, but I just decided not to go to school and just stay home. And then I remember he actually asked me to say, can you go and cook something for mom to eat? And yeah, I remember the details of that. Like I actually cooked like Maggie, dry Maggie noodles with an egg. You know, just as my mom finished the last bite of the meal, and then my father said a prayer. He said, is there any more of difficulties that prayer? And then after that, he passed away in the afternoon of the day. So what I remember was that because I felt when whatever the circumstances that surround the person's passing or cause the passing, there's always this love that actually stays on for the person who's still alive. And I think I remember that moment the most because I think that was what left the impression on me lah. And and then I think after my father passing, so my mom went to work, right? Because there's four of us, and she went to work to raise us. So the person who stayed with us most of the time was my grandmother, my mom's mother. So she was basically there throughout my secondary school and then early years of my university. And I think so she's quite old when she died. She was 80 plus. So it was more of like sickness and then old age. More of old age than rather than just sickness only lah. So I also felt the same love that she has for us because I remember I was also somehow I was there. I managed to meet her just before her passing. So I came back from university to meet her because she was in the hospital, right? And then she was just talking to us, to me and my sisters, and then she just said to us lah, she just said, um, regardless of what you guys do, always remember to listen to your mother. Remember to go for as much education as possible. Don't uh, try and start a business if you can. I remember she said that. Yeah, she was looking at our palm and then she was saying that lah. So then after that, I remember that time we had a few things planned, like there's a few travel teaching things in the Baha'i community that we were enrolled for camps and university program. And then she just said, you don't have to spend the time with me here, waiting for me to die, but you should just carry on with what you have planned. And then so I actually went back to university after I see her. And shortly after that, it was during this convocation festival in the university that she passed away. So she didn't get to be there for our convocation, but I think she was what she left on us was that she helped us to think about how life is life still goes on after the person passed away, and what we need to remember is what's the most precious hope our loved ones have for us that they want us to continue doing lah. So yeah, so sometimes I felt even though there are moments where we will come I will come to remember of certain things that she did or certain moments that we spent together. But I always remember that she's no longer she's no longer suffering in this physical world lah. She's free from that. And I think yeah, having her throughout the time after my father passing was a gift for us. Yeah.
A quick question, Sumit. You mentioned that
Ah,
your father asked you to cook a meal and all that. Does it mean that he was at home or in
yeah,
the
he came home towards the last few days, towards the end lah. So I think the doctor said, "Oh, you can go home," but but I cannot remember the details. But I just remember we were at home lah.
any rough idea from the time he was diagnosed until the time he passed away? What was the duration?
Maybe 1-2 years or
Oh,
less than 2 years lah.
okay. And then your grandmother was with you all. You were saying that until you all were in university and
Yeah,
all,
quite long. I think
more than 10 years kind of thing.
no, she was staying with us already before that, but she was in and
Oh.
out lah. Like moving to different homes. But after my father passed away, she just stayed more with us. Basically, just stay with us. Maybe 7-8 years. Yeah, around 7-8 years. 8, maybe 10 also. I don't know.
So one of the things that, just curious, also for Delaney, you were able to come back in time to be with your mom until she passed, right?
Yeah. So actually, it's also very interesting at the point that the day that she passed away. Because I was going to work in the morning. Of course, usually I go to work and then I come back on my own. Dad would spend his time at the hospital with my mom during the day. Of course, they don't stay overnight because the ward has its own requirements. Only I think women are allowed to stay in the women's ward. And I did stay at night with my mom uh, before I started work. So actually, I came back from the UK. My priority was to get a job as quickly as possible, because I also wanted to chip in and contribute to the medical costs. So I was very fortunate to get a job quite fast. In December, I was already working. And I made it clear to my employer that I was going through this situation where my mom was receiving treatment. So they were aware of this. So I was working. And that day, my dad was in the hospital. As usual, he would cook a meal for my mom and then he would feed her. So he said he cooked her porridge that day and she ate it very well that day. You know, it was just one of those days that she just seemed to be very had a good appetite, lah, you know, because another day sometimes she'll be a bit grumpy. Sick people they tend to be, I guess, frustrated with themselves. So they sort of, you know, sometimes get a bit irritated and harsh with the people around them. So I know it was very difficult for my dad as well, to be with her for such a long time in a day, because there will be moments where she gets very irritated. But that day itself, of course, her after she had her lunch, then her condition started to worsen. So the doctor actually told my dad, you know, looking at the vitals and everything, they said she might not make it through the night. So I got home that day from work, and then my dad told us roughly, you know, around maybe in the evening, it's like, yeah, this is what the doctor says, you know, she's not gonna make it. At that point, my brother and his wife were in KK in Kota Kinabalu because it was Chinese New Year and they were actually going there for the to meet the in-laws. So I was alone at home. I didn't have transport because my dad took the car and the hospital was all the way in Putrajaya. So I had to get my uncle to pick me up. So my uncle and his wife and my aunt, uh, they came to pick me up from home. And we made the journey from my place all the way to Putrajaya, which is about maybe 45 minutes to an hour away, by car. So when we got there, there were already a few friends who were at the hospital, and they had gone up to the ward to visit. And my dad was there. And at one time, I think you can only have like 2 or 3 people visiting. Yeah. So when my aunts and I went up to the ward, um, yeah, we entered. I saw my mom on the bed, and then she was just, I mean, unconscious lah. So my auntie was just talking to my dad at that point, and then she held my mom's hand, and she felt my mom's hand was quite clammy, cold and clammy.
Mm.
And then we were like, yeah, because you know, yeah, I don't think it was just the air conditioning lah, but at some point, yeah, probably, she was already on the way. So by that time, it was about almost 10:30, I think. Yeah, because I think my dad sent the message out around 7:30. Um, and then it took a while for my uncle to pick me up and everything. So about 10:30 at that moment when my aunt and I were there with my dad, that was when she breathed her last breath. So then the nurses came and checked, and then they confirmed, yeah, she had already passed. Um, so that moment itself, I was there to be able to see that moment that she passed. But for my brother and his wife, they unfortunately were not there.
Mm.
They took the earliest flight they could get from KK to KL, but by the time they came back, obviously it was too late. But I guess this was one of those moments, like, I don't know if my mom waited for me to just be there before she left, but at least, I was there by her bedside at that moment.
Just curious. Previously you were saying that when she was diagnosed, the I think was it the tumor was affecting the part of her brain that affects language.
Yeah.
So like that time she was still able to move about, or was she bedridden, or
She was able to move about. I mean, we took her out for dinner. We
oh
would walk around the shopping malls a little. And she was just at points incoherent. So like her text messages to me when I was still in the UK, sometimes I didn't understand what they were about because she just typed something. She wanted to say something, but it just came out, you know, uh, mixed up some words here and there. So this is actually something I study in linguistics. It's called aphasia. It's the loss of your language abilities due to some form of brain damage or impairment. So I knew what I was dealing with, and it's not something you can actually um, try and jog that person's memory and say, oh, come on, think harder or whatever. You just have to be patient because she will want to say something and then she cannot find the words, and then it's either she gives up and say never mind, or we have to keep guessing until we get it right. Yeah,
uh,
sure.
yeah. So for Aluna, yeah, she was hospitalized for a month because during her trip back to Laos, that she had some viral infection, and so the doctor, when we came back to Borneo, we flew into Miri. She was already in quite a bad situation. So she was hospitalized for about a month. She was okay in that 1 month. She was actually, the doctors just want to keep her in the isolation ward to prepare for the heart procedure lah, because for heart procedure, when you get any kind of sickness or any kind of infection, then they will cancel the procedure. They will not take the risk lah. So that was the intention of keeping her, even though actually she could be out lah if it was not because of the heart procedure that was scheduled. So when she was approaching her passing, think it happened over 3 days when she was admitted into the ICU. That's when we could see from first day of the ICU, then the second day, the condition deteriorated quite drastic lah. So in the last day in the ICU, the third day, I think it was around afternoon, the doctors told us lah that all the treatments that they are doing is not responding, that Aluna is not responding to any of the treatments, and they said that we can start calling our relatives lah who was about 2 hours away in Brunei. So those that we can inform them lah. That's when I sent out the message that Aluna's not gonna make it, and then so one thing where I am grateful was that my mom was there with us with Aluna also, because my mom had to deal with the passing of her husband, my father, and that was already quite very, very painful for her. So I can't imagine how would it be like if her granddaughter was to pass and she was not there lah. So the three of us were able to carry her one last time after she have passed. They took out all the needles. She was on all the medication and all that, and we were able to carry her lah. And why did I tell this? I thought it was I'm trying to find the words. It was can't find the word, like something like important or special, or like something that we
Significant?
sorry
Significant?
something like we kind of like needed kind of that as well, to be able to hold her and say whatever we need to her, and before we was not able to, because after that then she'll be in the parlor where she's just in the display ice box. That one we can't really carry her and all that. So I thought that was I don't know what's the word lah. So later on throughout the our conversation here, if we have anything that we want to return to the this part of our experience, we can feel free to do so. Otherwise, there are a few things that I thought of asking to explore this this topic a bit more lah. So the other thing that I wanted to ask was how was it like in your surrounding at the time? Like, what were the things that you see or you notice during this time of this happening in your life, the passing of your loved ones, like your surroundings? So maybe I can start with one or two first. One thing I noticed was that even though I don't really see the practical use of it, but emotionally I thought it was emotional support lah, that there were friends around us at that time, out, so like more of like the parents' friends, not so much of the like Aluna, my daughter's friends, because at that time not many of the friends that came knew my daughter, but they knew me and my mom and my wife. So, and I know that there's nothing that they could do at that time. This was when we were still in the ICU lah. So it was just them being there for us, when with us, to go through this this time. And so there's nothing that they can do other than just being there with us and saying prayers and yeah, just being there with us lah. So I thought about this after I had time to think lah, that I thought like it made a difference lah, to have people around you when you are in this kind of time. So these friends, they were there when we already know that Aluna was passing, but she was still on the life support machine and just waiting for the time lah. So they were there with us for about few hours, because from the time that we knew was, I think, around in the afternoon, and Aluna passed away, I think, around 9 something p.m. lah, at night. So the friends were there with us until, I think, in the evening. And yeah, this was one of the things that I noticed lah, that being sometimes it's very hard to say anything to those who are going to lose a loved ones, but then just being there itself, I thought, yeah, it made a difference lah. So I was wondering, like, how was it like for you, or did you all notice anything else other than what you yourself experiencing?
Maybe I can share. So I think around the time that my mom was diagnosed with cancer, I made it a point to let the people around me know what was going on, because I felt like it was important to share not just the good news, but of course the bad news of things with people that we consider our family and friends. I know of some people who don't share these kinds of things with people in their lives, because they feel like it's a burden to others. They don't want to trouble anyone. But what I had in mind was that the more people that you actually bring into your circle to share what's going on, the more support you get. Because in this period, I mean, when it comes to like a diagnosis of a terminal illness, it's not instantaneous. It takes time, right? And you will undergo a lot of emotional stress, because every day you have to take every day at one day at a time. And there's going to be lots of ups and downs. Then there's also financial stress. Not every family is financially capable of covering the costs. Sometimes treatment takes a very long time, and how much can you sustain with your income? In the case of my family, my dad was retired, and he was working part-time with Grab. He was doing some things, but that was after my mom passed away. So at that time, he was doing some other work. It was a project of sorts. He was getting some money, but then, you have to always think, if the treatment's going to take a very long time, how are you going to ensure that you can pay for the treatment? So for families that, may not be so financially stable, sharing the load with others is also helpful. I mean, not that you're going to solicit, but then sometimes people who understand your situation well might be able to chip in. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it's the thought that counts. And my cousin was very kind to actually contribute some money, because he knew like this is something that, obviously he had lost his own at the time he was very close to his grandmother. So he lost his grandmother, he knew how it felt. And then his mom also passed away. So and then he knew how it felt to actually have to deal with these things. So he gave some money. Some other close friends also, they tried to support in whatever ways they could. So like what Sheng Jie, you said, people spending time with you and trying to just provide emotional support. Some friends, they came to visit the house, and I encouraged that. I said, we don't want mom to just be alone in the house looking at us. Sometimes we are also busy, we have to work. She may be alone, or my dad will be alone in the house with her, and it's difficult when he has to look after everything. So just have people come over, visit, cheer her up a little. So some of them would ask me, what does your mom like to eat? What would you like to eat? And we'll bring some of the food. So they would bring the food to the house, or if she was in the hospital receiving treatment, they would also bring it there. And then we just spend some time talking and just to cheer her up. There was also a time where I had to go for a meeting. And I think my dad, yeah, because we share a car, so my dad had to send me to the venue for the meeting. So there would not be anybody at home with my mom because my brother and his wife live in another home. So I called up my university friends, and then I said, well, I need help. Someone has to look after my mom while I'm away at this meeting for a couple of hours. So, three or four of them just showed up at my home and they spent time with my mom while I was at the meeting. So, these are little things that you can do to support someone who's going through this kind of difficulty. Again, not everyone can afford help around the house. Not everyone has a maid or a live-in nurse or somebody, a helper. So just having a few people just around to look after or to support helps a lot. Another thing that I also noticed was that I have friends who also had lost their family members to cancer. So some of them were trying to suggest some treatments for cancer, alternative treatments, not the ones that you get in the hospital. Sometimes there are certain kinds of herbal products, certain kinds of treatments that are less conventional. And then, of course, they would say, oh, my so and so tried it and it worked. This person is now, able to live extra how many years and so on. There's a lot of these kinds of things that will come in. I mean, people mean well and they want to see, your loved one get better. But you also have to take everything with a grain of salt. You can't try out every single method. One is the cost. The other thing is, everybody's circumstances are different. You can try it and then it doesn't work. Or there are so many factors involved, and whether the patient herself is willing to go through all these kind of treatments is another question. So there'll be people who give lots of advice, but I think what was helpful was there was one friend who had lost her mother, and she told me, like, you get a lot of this unsolicited advice, but at the end of the day, it's your family, and you can choose what you want to do with it. People shouldn't take offense to not when you say, oh, I don't think we want to go for that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's our decision, our family's decision. And don't have to feel burdened like, oh, because that person has already engaged the doctor or somebody who can do this treatment, you must therefore go for it. You just have to learn how to politely decline if that's not what you want to choose to do. Because if not, you're just spending a lot of time in and out of hospitals when you could actually spend time, quality time with your loved one.
Yeah.
There was also another thing that actually took place when the tumor was in my mom's brain. There was a suggestion to maybe operate and to remove the tumor from her brain.
Oh,
So they actually, my mom and my dad went to the hospital to see the specialist, the neurosurgeon. And I wasn't there with them because I was at work. But essentially the conversation went like the neurosurgeon said, well, if you want to do the surgery, there's no guarantee that it will be successful. It could be worse, she could end up being unable to do a lot more things because when you're dealing with the brain, it's such a complex organ. So the neurosurgeon sort of said, well, if you just want to have, quality time with your family, then don't go with the surgery lah. Because yes, the surgery may be successful and you might be able to do a bit more, but then there's also a risk of the surgery not turning out well, and then you lose everything in the process. So yeah, at that moment we decided, okay, we won't do the surgery, but we'll just do the radiotherapy to just let tumor shrink. That was the the best option that we could have lah. And there was nothing we could do about the lung cancer because it was too aggressive. So that was kind of how we came to terms with it lah. That there was not really any possibility of her getting better. But we would just take each day at a time to just try to find something funny or something for her to do that would make her happy lah. So yeah, I think these are just some of the things that people can think about if they are trying to console a friend or family member who's going through a tough time.
One thing I know that when you have a passing of a loved ones, people would say all sorts of things, and one thing that I reflected on was that it is maybe good for those who are receiving it to know that people meant well, that they are trying to maybe comfort us lah. So even though it may appear what you call this, insensitive or like a bit one kind, but yeah, maybe it's useful to know that people are trying to comfort us lah.
Yeah.
I think like what Dylane said, our friends and other families and friends will often offer to help us lah. I remember when my father passed away, there were some friends who assisted us, like assisted my mom especially because we were all still very young, right? By taking us to their home, making sure we go to school, we have food after school. I mean, it's now come to think about it, those are just kind gesture on their part. And I think also like when my father passed away, there were some friends who also immediately step in to assist with the funeral arrangement. Yeah, I think a lot of these things that I remember there were also people who travel all the way from other states who come immediately to offer their help and support. So it was not just the ones who were near us, but also friends from other places who they know my parents. Some actually don't know my father, but they actually know my mom. So they just came just to give the support to my mom. Yeah. So I guess that also something that I noticed that people are always ready to assist. It's just that maybe sometimes we need to be paiseh to ask lah, or shy to ask lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They always say, "Oh, we don't want to trouble you."
yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of us always think, that we are troubling somebody when we ask for help. But then when we don't ask for help, then people also get upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the previous video when I was talking about the passing of my father, this was one of the things that I also mentioned that sometimes people want to help but they don't know what to do. So sometimes like saying like you need help with what is also useful, because people do want to help out, and sometimes they don't know what to say to comfort us, but they know they can do things for us to help out. So also for those who are in this kind of situation, to be open to receiving help as well lah, because it's not easy, and a lot of things like emotionally we're already going through a lot, and sometimes is it logistically there's also a lot of things that you need to arrange or attend to, especially if you have younger ones. Then should be also open to people helping out as well.
No, I think there's something else I remember was that because my father extended families, his sisters and brothers, they are not Baha'is. So then in Chinese, when the Chinese person Chinese family, when somebody pass away, they have certain kind of rituals that that may not seem logical. Like there was this picture that they were telling my mom, oh, you need to get a group of people to come and cry. How
Uyo.
can there's no people crying all the time? Uh 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 so you need to get that people, and then you need to have a outer not outer, like a table that set up food, like put all his
Oh.
favorite food at all the time, so that
Mm.
it's like somebody need to cook lah, to make sure there's this favorite food all the time there ready for consumption. So I think I remember that time there was some friends, some Bahai friends from the community that actually came, also trying to explain to my aunties. They were like, we don't practice this. Why the dead person cannot eat anymore? Why crying is no
Don't need
good?
to eat already.
Yeah. That I remember that, and then I think also I remember. I cannot remember who's the person, but there was this somebody who dressed red and came
In
like
red, dress in.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then all my extended relative was like, "Hey, who's this guy who came with wearing red?" And then but I remember the person was a young youth lah. Then he was just saying that death is a messenger of joy. We just celebrate death lah. So I find it's interesting. Also, there are also friends like this uh who try to come and have conversation with your other relative about
Mm.
death from the Baha'i perspective through what they do. And then, yeah, I mean, now you think back, it's funny, but at the time it was not funny lah. It was a bit tension to the family.
Very
But
tense
I guess,
situation.
yeah, there's also circumstances like this um when dealing with issues related to death or like funeral matters, when you have extended families who are not Baha'is, and the way how you need to, at that moment of somebody, your loved one passing, you also need to deal with those issues as well, because they are also the family members of my father ma. So then you cannot just dismiss them and say, oh no, you have no right to decide, especially because the time all four of us are very young, and there's only like my
Mm.
mom holding the fort. So I guess it was actually very also nice to have some of the older uncles and aunties for the Baha'i community around, that helps to explain to my father sisters, like, oh, why you don't have this ritual, why we don't burn the money, we don't burn paper money, why you don't have people crying, why you don't have the loud music. In some Chinese funeral, they have very loud, I don't know what it's called, procession or music, funeral music
Mm.
that's being played all night, all day, all night kind. And then we say, oh, we don't want those. We just want to play the Baha'i prayer. We just want to play the prayers. Yeah. So I think there was also something that I remember was uh make it a moment of a different moment for other families, other members in the family or the extended family, to actually also start thinking about death is in a different manner. I feel so lah.
I think we already entered this segment of the that I thought of bringing up was also how was it like to cope with or to live with this happening this passing of a loved one. So like, well, how was it like during the early days, like the immediate 2-3 days after the passing to the funeral, and also to, let's say, the first 100 days. So I think just now I think few of us have touched on this, but like, yeah, anything else do you would like to to touch on this?
For my mom, we had the wake and the in the Chinese funeral parlor. Obviously, then in KL there are not many choices lah, I would say, for people who, well, okay lah, Baha'i funeral parlor doesn't exist lah. Let's just say that lah. But yeah, there were those that were more expensive. and my family could not afford a more expensive funeral parlor lah. So we chose a more simple setup. But it was not about the setting, it was about the people who wanted to go and pay their respects.
Yeah.
So the local spiritual assembly helped with the funeral arrangements. This is something that the local spiritual assembly had set up for itself, sort of an emergency response task force. Among the members, there will be a few who would be on standby whenever such things were to arise. So there are like 2 or 3 members who would look into this. So like the moment that my dad had told us that my mom would not make it through the night, I had already shared the message out with the friends in the community. And so the local spiritual assembly was well aware, and they were already thinking about the choices of the funeral parlors that we could go um, to do the final arrangements, to the preparation of the body, and then also the wake service and the funeral, the hearse to take the body, the coffin to the burial ground. So all of that, they had already done the work basically. So my family did not have to worry about who to call, all of these. You don't have funeral parlors on your speed dial. You don't have all these things, thought out in advance. But what was helpful was that the members of the local spiritual assembly had these details, and they already gave us like, okay, these are the choices, and according to your budget, what can you actually afford lah. So we went with one that was simpler. But what was interesting? In that funeral parlor, there were a few other what you call halls, like separate buildings. And next door there was one that was burning the paper house or whatever it is, those kind of things. And then in the room where my mom's wake was held, was just a whole gathering of people of all kinds of backgrounds. You have your Chinese, your Indian, your Chindian, your Persian, your whatever kind of person there. It was very unusual to see them in a Chinese funeral parlor, and they're all paying respects to my mom. And it was just so extraordinary. My dad's brothers and sisters who had never met my mom's friends and in this kind of setting, they were just surprised, like the different groups of people who actually came to pay their respects for her. And it was also their first experience of going through a Baha'i funeral. So having prayers being said, rather than having a priest come and perform the rituals, like what Sudhir was so sharing, was probably a new experience for them. And there was also a family friend who spoke to them because they were more comfortable speaking in Chinese. So we're sharing with them like how it's being done, the prayers and then the funeral, what's the process and that. And one of my uncles even was invited to read a prayer, and he did during the day of the funeral, before the hearse left the funeral parlor. So in that scene of people grieving, of course, there was also a lot of joy, and it was something that brought people together in a very different way, because yeah, we had never really talked about what my mom did in the community with my dad's family members, I guess. So they had no idea that my mom had actually um touched many lives before this, and just to see such a diverse group of people, maybe was culture shock for them. But I thought it was a nice culture shock, because they were pleasantly surprised, like there were these people who actually knew my mom. And also after the funeral took place, you're asking about the first 100 days. I know there were friends who also invited me or my dad, my family out for a meal. Sometimes it's just to help us just put our minds at ease. Sometimes it's just to talk it out. I remember having lunch, I think, with one of my good friends, one of my best friends. So she took me out to makan. And of course, all right lah. So because we were talking about what was happening and all that, Yeah, I cried in the restaurant, but it was okay, because yeah, she just wanted to help me to process, and it was very useful lah. So I think, yeah, the first few weeks I had to go back to work as usual. They had given me compassionate leave, but then I said, okay, I need to get back to work because I was also teaching in the university. So we can't suspend classes for too long. Then the students need replacement classes and that. Um, but it was fine. Going to work was fine. I think at one point, uh, because it was the end of the first semester in the university, some feedback from the students came in, and then my boss at the time said, I think, yeah, you're still going through a difficult time lah, because some of the students said, maybe I don't know, irritable, very, easily agitated or whatever it is. So she said, would you like to consider counseling or something if you're going through a tough time? I said, okay. But I think also it was the students learning to adapt to me, because I was also new in the university, and I was also adapting to the culture. There were a lot of things going on. Some of the students knew what had happened. So of course some could understand, but some maybe couldn't understand why I was going through, certain phases. Um, but what was interesting was also during that period, maybe not in the first 100 days, but I think that year itself, a few of my students also lost a parent due to some sickness. And I could relate to that, and they had difficulties in submitting assignments, couldn't do the exam, missed some deadlines here and there. But having gone through it myself, I could understand this is normal, this is natural. I mean, you can't expect everyone to operate in the same way as a person who did not have any of these kinds of circumstances. So it made me a more compassionate person, understanding what people were going through. Had to attend a few of these wakes and funerals myself, some of the people who had lost their parents. But going back to this part about the first 100 days, one of the things that my dad and I wanted to do was also to reconnect with my mother's siblings. So they were in the UK at the time when my mom passed away, and it was not possible for them to fly back to Malaysia. So these relatives of mine, we have not been in touch for many, many years. In fact, I have not met my auntie, I think, since I was born, or I just don't remember having met her, because she was in the UK for many years. And my uncle, I had seen him once or twice, but also, did not have much connection with him. So when my mom passed away, of course we conveyed this to my uncle and my auntie. One thing that my dad wanted to do was also like, let's try and rebuild that bridge lah. So we made a trip to the UK in April that year, and April to early May. And we decided that we would meet up the family and also organize sort of a memorial service. So um, I had friends in the UK that were very close to me, although they didn't know my mother, because I had been updating them on what was going on. Of course, they had, prayed for my mother, and they wanted to also um, provide me emotional support. So I told them I was coming to the UK and I was planning to have a memorial service. So I said I needed a venue to have the memorial service, because I don't have, a place to rent, or whatever, a home, somebody's home, something. So initially, one of the members in the assembly had said, okay, I will open my home for your memorial service. But when we were there in the UK, there was another friend of ours, who has this very nice apartment in Kensington, which is a very posh area of London. Okay. But he's the most generous person ever. And so when my dad and I went to his house for a gathering, while we were in the UK, I was just sharing with him. I said, oh, I'd like to have a memorial service for my mother and all that. he very kindly offered, say, why don't you do it in my home? And his home would be big enough to accommodate, many more people. So I took up the offer, and then I, of course, had met my auntie, my uncle, and my cousin. So when we met up, then I said, okay, so the memorial service will be held at this person's house. You know, um, come to this house at this time, this date, we'll have the memorial service. I think they were very shocked to find out that, the memorial service was held in an apartment in Kensington. Nobody would expect that because that's a very posh area. But it was just not so much the setting, but then also the people who showed up were my friends, and they were British, I don't know, Irish, and all kinds of people, yeah, Persian and all that, who none of these people had met my mother, but because they were very dear friends of mine, they showed up, and we had prayers in the house. And it was a very nice way to just, honor my mother and to remember her in a place that she actually had wanted to visit, but she couldn't. Yeah. She had heard all these stories from me about what I was doing in London, but she never got to go. So we put a piece of her in this in the house. She used to make a lot of craft, like the recycled paper. To make a lot of these things. In her earlier years, she would sell these products at the craft market. So my dad and I actually took out a lot of the things that she had made, some of the old stock. We started distributing these things to people in London, the friends that we met, everybody we met, we just say, this is something my mother made. This is something that she made. So even though she could not physically make her way to London, parts of her are in London in that sense, with these friends who showed up for her memorial service, and also my auntie, my uncle, my cousins, who maybe, yeah, did not get to meet my mom in the final years, but at least, they were able to take something home that belonged to her.
Wait, so okay, I have two that I thought of. One was okay, now I can thought of three. So immediately after the passing, when Aluna passed away, and she after the next day she was transported to the parlor. I think one thing that I would maybe want to share is that I think different people cope with grief differently, and how they express it will also be different. So like for myself, I noticed that I can't fully uh can't fully grieve or can't fully cry it out if there are people around me. Even Anne, when she is around, also I notice that I will hold it in. I don't know why, and it's not something that I do voluntarily, but I know that I will hold it in. So on the second day when my mother-in-law arrived from Laos, I told Anne to accompany my mother-in-law at her home, because my mother-in-law made a very long journey. I think it took her almost a whole day to travel and go through connecting flights to reach Miri, to also she wants to send off her little granddaughter. So she came. So I asked Anne to be with her mom, and I will accompany Aluna in the parlor. And so that night, when I was alone with Aluna, that's when I really let it out lah, because there was no one else there, just me and Aluna. And yeah, we turn on music and chants of prayer. But yeah, I thought of sharing that lah, that I needed that as well, to be alone with my daughter, so that I can grieve lah, basically. I had 2 nights of that, so yeah, I could pour out everything lah. My family was of course concerned. They were saying, "No lah, don't be by yourself lah. They're scared, a grieving parent, you leave them alone with their loved one by themselves. Of course, lah, they scared anything happen, but so I had to reassure them lah that this is what I needed, and I want to spend the time with my daughter. So yeah, I thought that was maybe noteworthy lah, that different people will cope with the grief differently, and it's maybe useful to communicate that as well lah, to let your other family members who are concerned about you to know. And yeah, so my family members were concerned, so they came early in the morning just to come and make sure everything that I'm okay, everything is okay. And yeah, so that's one. The other one was yeah, first 100 days was until now lah, actually, even though it's been just 7 months already, it feels very long, but it's just 7 months. Everything, everywhere, all the time will remind us of our little girl lah. So especially my wife, she would say things like especially when we come across little girls, other people's children, we'll have remarks like if she was still around, she would be doing this, or this, the little things kids do will also remind us. So like Aluna was a bit fussy with her food, so when we see children having very good appetite, we will remember all these things, and the places that we have visited together with Aluna will also remind us lah, all the time of our memory with her. So yeah, that's another one. I think the other one is so when we came back to Brunei, because Miri and Brunei is two separate countries, and when Aluna passed away, it was on a weekend, and it was not easy for our friends and families to make the trip. The funeral was on a Monday, so yeah, what Anne and I thought of doing when we came back to Brunei was to hold something like prayers or memorial kind of thing, but then in very small settings. So we invited like 2 families, maximum 3, but then the crowd is quite small, so that we can have that more smaller setting, more intimate, that we can talk more freely lah. Because I know some friends, when there's a lot of people, we tend to not ask more detailed or sometimes maybe sensitive kind of questions. But then when it's a bit more smaller setting, it's we feel more comfortable asking, because we know many of our friends didn't know exactly what happened, and yeah, we also wanted to take the time to, of course, pray for Aluna together, and also keep our loved ones, our friends and families informed also lah, of what happened, what transpired, and some were not able to know Aluna that well, so we also took that time to like show pictures and videos, and pictures and videos are very helpful for Anne and myself. We every time when we're very down, Aluna is the only one that can give us comfort in ways that each of us can't lah. So looking back at those videos, and let me see what else. Oh, and also so Anne and I are okay to talk about this episode of our life. We know that as in the earlier part of this podcast, I mentioned that sometimes people don't feel at ease to talk about this kind of things. So at the beginning of this small gatherings, we would tell our friends that we are open and okay to talk about the passing of Aluna. Just don't mind it when you start seeing tears flowing lah. It's naturally happens to us because yeah, I mean, we of course miss her very much, and it will happen now. We can't control it. So even like now, we're just talking about it, it will flow one. So we just have to let our friends and family know lah. So this, yeah, I think this three these three things that I would like to mention, and having this kind of small gatherings, I think helped um Anne and myself, I think, to surround ourselves with friends and families, and also sharing happy memories as well, reliving those uh yeah, those good memories that we had lah. Yeah.
I just remember something like I think for me what was helpful after the funeral was my I remember my teacher called me, my school at that time my class teacher called me at home and she said, she heard of what has happened, and which I also don't know who called her and tell her, but she just said that, if you need time before coming to school, just take the time. And I think when I remember going back to school, uh, my teacher, I don't know what my teacher told my other friends, but everyone was more kinder than before than usual, and they don't ask questions also lah. Maybe I don't know what my teacher said, but I remember that kind gesture of the teacher. I think which I think it was very helpful also. Yeah, because yeah, I don't remember a lot of my friends asking. Yeah, I think maybe my teachers told something. Then my teacher also offered like, oh, if you need help with the to catch up on school work, because that was just actually the beginning of school, and I actually missed the first week of school, like the first day of first 2 weeks of school starting, and she said, you need help, you need anything to catch up, just let me know. So I thought that was also something that was very nice to remember. So I guess maybe as I was listening to all our stories, that I felt we are all very actually blessed to have friends and family around us
Yeah.
uh that are with us throughout the way, and maybe that itself is a way of moving forward as well, to remember the good things that is associated with what has the passing of beloved ones, so that whenever we think of the ones who pass away, it's not just always feeling it's not just the feeling of being sad also, but also of how much love that was shown towards us and also our loved ones. I feel like that's what I feel.
I also remember, like, even until now, sometimes I come across people that I have never met before, but they knew my mother, right? So they'll ask me like, "Oh, are you Kimpo's daughter?" I say, "Yeah." And say, "Oh, I know Kimpo from wherever, wherever, in this time and all that." And then they'll say, "Oh, there was something that she did, and it was very touching and all that." So I really appreciate like those kinds of uh anecdotes, because those are things that I would not have known about my mother. She would not go around telling the family, "Oh, this is what I did," and all that, right? So it's also very nice to um hear stories of, what your loved one did in other people's lives, that maybe, um never occurred to you because maybe it was something that you were not present for, or maybe to you it was a small thing, but to that person it meant a lot. So I remember there was one friend who said um, there was an occasion when they were having a gathering in a Bahai center, and this friend brought her maid, lah, her helper to the center. I mean, the maid was just following, accompanying, and my mother was so happy to see this friend and all. She also gave the helper a very big hug. My mom is known for hugging people and giving this very nice warm hug. And I think it left a very strong impression on this woman. So much so, like, every time um this friend would come and say, "Oh, I miss your mother very much," and all that. And she would say, "My helper will always remember that hug that your mom gave, because really she never expected anyone to just give her a hug at the door. Uh, Nobody else knew her, and my mom also didn't know her, but just wanted to give a hug." So like those kind of stories really, it makes me feel happy that she had done these little things and it made a difference in people's lives. And yeah, I'm happy to collect more stories like that as we go. Some people have told me personally, some people maybe they keep it in their mind lah, but if ever I come across anyone, yeah, this is something I think the family who's going through a loss would very much appreciate. I'm sure all of us would like to know a little bit of the different facets of a person's life, but because we don't know everything about our own loved ones right from the very beginning. So these kinds of stories also help.
I think what helps people go through this part in their life is also beliefs or principles, or what do you call this? Motto,
Values.
values that they live
Mm.
with. I was thinking, if is there any that we would like to share here? I think earlier on we already mentioned, that's why there are things like people from different religious background, they will understand or practice different things. Yeah, anybody would like to start?
I think there was this quotation Baha'u'llah's writings that I remember. Is something like this. He says, "O son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I make the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom?" And I think because of this also, yes, there are moments of being sad and grieving, but there's also this I guess from assurance, maybe assurance. Maybe yeah, that this is just a temporary separation until you reunite again when you pass on to the next world. And I think that's also um something that helps me also when I think of all the loved ones that have passed on, not just my father or my grandmother, but also some of the other friends or aunties and uncles around me that pass on. Like what are some of the things that they have done that left an impact.
I think for me, I have two things. One was when my mom was still alive, and she was unable to uh, read, write, or express herself, right? One thing that I was always mindful of was this concept that, the soul is not affected by all these bodily impairments. Like even though she could not, uh, read or speak, clearly it did not hinder her soul from being able to communicate with God, or, the soul is not tied down by all of these physical, limitation. And so that was also very comforting because, yeah, of course she passed away in a condition that was less than, obviously it's not a beautiful kind of condition. But that did not mean that her soul was in any way deformed or damaged because of the body, right? And I think in many cases also, I think my father also, he lost his brother. His brother's last few moments, his body was very uh in a very bad condition. Like it looked really bad. Like, no matter in what form that person dies, the soul that lives is actually in its purest form, and we do not have to worry about the pain and the suffering anymore, because the soul was never tainted to begin with, right? It was just as it was, manifesting all the wonderful qualities. It did not make that soul less uh you know loving, less kind, or whatever it is, even though on the outside it might seem like that person has changed. into something that you don't fully recognize because of a sickness. So that part, I feel like it was important to remember that, and also to cherish that, her soul is as beautiful as it was when she was in the best of health, and it will continue that way. I think the other thing that I also uh, want to share is this. There's this quotation. They release some kind of special potency of power in this world, and they inspire us in different ways, and they give us um you know I don't know, ideas, or newfound discoveries and all that. Maybe not in the way that my mom would have sparked any kind of magnificent discoveries for me, but I like to think of this idea like, in the quotation it says, like, it's like the leaven that leavens the bread. You have yeast that helps the bread to grow. um the souls of those who have passed on actually can re-energize us in ways that we don't understand, right? But a lot of the things that maybe I was able to achieve or to do may have been by virtue of the prayers and the souls that have passed on, and thinking of us, and giving us the support and the guidance from above, even if we don't know what is really behind it. Sometimes good things happen and we think it's just by luck, but maybe it's actually the good deeds and the prayers of the people who have passed on and are watching us, and trying to bless us along the way. So that's also something that fills me with, reassurance.
That's only two. I think you say you got three things you want to share.
No, two.
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 So for maybe what I would want to maybe mention here was the bond of love that existed lah. Okay, pause for a while. Lady,
Oh, I think she left the
her
internet.
data ran out. For my side, I thought I think there were three things lah, three things that we want to share that I think helped us a lot. Of course, first one is about the life of the soul, understanding about the life of the soul, that life does not end with death here, and that they they are progressing to the realms beyond life on earth, and that they are still growing spiritually, and mm, the soul is not exactly something that we know very how do you say like very clearly. Like there are some things that we cannot explain, but it does happen. So where I'm going with this is like things about dreams. So yeah, sometimes when we do have dreams, it might, or it can be like some connection with those who have passed on. Also, yeah, knowing that uh when we pass away too, we also can be, reunited with our loved ones. And yeah, that I think it gives some kind of comfort lah, to know that it is not like the total end. It's just like a very long separation, perhaps. Yeah, so life of the soul is one. I think the other one was knowing about this will of God, that like in life we are all part of this bigger plan, and we're all part of a plan, and uh everything happens. There's this will of God at play too lah. So no matter how hard we try, if things are contrary to will of God, then it will still um won't go as we plan lah. Cause I felt like with passing of Aluna, is very easy for us to blame ourselves. Alright, "Oh, we could have done this, we should have done it like this and like that." And very easily you can get into blaming ourselves lah. What if we did it like this, or we should have, like, and then you become a spiral lah. You just keep uh thinking about what if, and then but also to like being aware that there's this will of God, then kinds of like um put us in put me in the right perspective lah, that it's not something about, it's not, how do you say it ah? It's not blaming ourselves lah. Like, yeah, maybe there are things that we can learn and do better, but then like ultimately, no matter what we do, there's this will of God that we cannot um do anything about it, but also it is uh like for the better lah. So what God has planned is much um greater, or there's like a purpose to it lah. So it's just more, maybe from our part, it's also more of like figuring out, or like what is the plan behind, or what is the reason behind this happening. The last one I thought was very helpful during this period was, of course, prayers. So yeah, Anne and I said a lot of prayers. We had prayers with a lot of friends as well. Um, we gathered friends and relatives in in a more smaller setting, like in our house, regularly during like the first 3 months lah. So we had a lot of prayers, and we, yeah, also in our own private time alone, also we had our own prayers, and it's like it gives solace lah, and also for us to pour our grief to God. So yeah, I think these three are the ones that I want to mention. Then the next thing that I thought of exploring is what are, like, how the how people nowadays, how do they react, respond, or deal with passing of a loved ones? What thoughts do we have? Any reflections? I think earlier, the other day, Sume was saying, uh, what was it about stuff? Is it there's someone who collect a lot of stuff, and then now the the family have to deal with
Oh yeah, yeah.
clearing up the stuff.
There was uncle that I think he not just one, a few uncles that passed away. And then their wife was saying that, somebody's hobby is now my nightmare kind of thing. So it just I think it was making me reflecting also like how uh sometimes it's also a very difficult period for people to go through, to sort out things, to clear things, especially maybe to the person who passed away, everything is precious. But then to the person who's still alive, they're not sure what's that precious moment is with the item or the stuff they collected lah. I think over the years, I felt I what I see was that I think there are some people who are sick and they know that they might not have longer period on this life anymore, like they're gonna pass on soon. Some of them actually will start clearing their things, like they actually will call you like, hey, come, I got something to give you, choose what you like, or they will start to clear their things lah. But there are also others who they are suddenly being taken ill or pass away due to accidents where they are not able to um, sort out their own things. it becomes a very difficult. I saw it is to the younger ones, like maybe the 30, 40s people, when they have another half that pass away, it's a more difficult, um, I guess, period to actually deal with, for them to deal with the stuff of the passing of the person who passed on. But I saw uh like the older aunties and uncles recently who had a few, actually this year last year, 2024, had around maybe 4 or 5 of them who had their spouses passing away. And they are like, oh yeah, we know they are moving on to the better world. So yeah, even though we are filled with sadness, uh, but we also want to give back to whoever doesn't mind lah. So some of them give books, some of them gave their collection of articles over the, I think, 40, 50 years kind of thing of the development of the country or the Baha'i faith in the country. So, or even, there's whole collections of CDs, record, cassette tapes. I guess also maybe because, I don't know, maybe because the older one had, I feel maybe they are also sad, but yet they are also happy at the same time that their other spouses doesn't need to um face more pain or difficulty in life. I think recently I also went for a funeral. The person who passed away was a lady who is 90 years old, grandmother. And
Wow.
it's a Chinese Baha'i funeral kind of thing lah. So it was, I find it very interesting because they did not wear the typical mourning color, like which people always wear, whether it's white or black. Generally is white lah. So this one, they all had, all the males wear I think like a blue color, all the female wear pink color. So it was a sort of like a joyful movement of celebration for these women who passed away, for this papa who passed away. And the friends were, I mean, when the grandchildren were actually emceeing the ceremony, they actually says that they say, our grandmother have touched many lives, and we would like to actually celebrate her life rather than feel sad, just mourning about her, and then we forget the kind of things that she has done for all of us. So maybe some of us here can share how she touched our life, or how she served us, how she made us happy. And I think it was a very non a typical kind of Chinese funeral. So some of the relatives are not actually very comfortable with the thing when you have to talk about this in front of everyone. But I think the younger generations, the ones who are in their 20s and 30s now, I see they don't mind going up there to share, like, what have their, like this lady, what their grandmother has done for them, or how she influenced their life, compared to the older generation. I can see they're being very uncomfortable throughout the whole session, like, why need to talk about this in front of everybody, so many people here, kind of feeling like. So I guess also maybe it also has to do with our upbringing on how we deal with the passing of a loved one. Like for some culture or some background of, maybe because of education, the passing of a loved one is seen as a taboo or a very personal situation where you don't share, or you grieve in personal isolation kind of mode. You don't actually celebrate the death lah. Yeah, but last year I saw a few older person who passed away. The way how their family dealt with it was actually celebration. Like one of the uncle who passed away, his funeral was full of music that he loved. Like, it was joyful, happy music. And the family also told others who come come in colorful colors, don't dress in black or white. This he doesn't like it. He like us all to be happy. So I think it like even in instances like those, it makes other people to also start asking questions like, why your especially if the uh if the final rites were have took place in a funeral parlor where you have a lot of other people also there. So like in this case, this family had the final rites was at the funeral parlor, and then the other other families who also had a passing of a loved ones there started asking this family like, why we see people come in from different background, people who come, they all dress in such vibrant colors. Is it's not a very typical color scenario that you see in a funeral. And then we saw so many music, people singing in the in the funeral parlor, like why you all feeling so happy kind of thing lah. So I think it gave a lot of the family members an opportunity to talk about um death as well.
So something like the focus being away from like death per se, and more towards like the life of the person, what he,
Celebration of the life of the person lah.
what he or she did during their life, and like what we can or learn or like cherish memories. So like, but if we overly focus on like the death itself, then yeah, like, of course it's something yeah, sad, and because of this separation and all. But if we look it at this uh wider sense, then yeah, there are things to be um to celebrate.
Mm.
Just want to add on to what Sumi was sharing about this death being a taboo, or grieving is a very personal, individual process. Because in the world today, a lot of people don't really openly share sad news or bad news. And even if it does come out, it's always too late. The person is already gone by then. So the thing is that people often suffer alone in these kinds of moments of, let's say, crisis lah. Whereas when it comes to like happy news, good news, the celebration is prolonged, it's always with others. Everybody gets to know about it way before the actual event itself. Let's say, uh, you know, someone's getting married or someone's going to have a child. Everyone is like, in this uh, happy mood for quite a long time, and they celebrate with the people involved uh, in big groups, right? Most of the time. But when it comes to a sad occasion like funeral or a death, especially one that um, you kind of expect, if a person is going through a terminal illness, there is actually a period before it happens, right? Um, how do people deal with it? Some people decide not to disclose a lot of information about the circumstances. And so people who are close to the family, um, either they know a lot or they don't know at all, and they don't dare to ask because the family that's involved requests for privacy. But this also makes it very difficult for the family to deal with, the shock of it all when the person finally passes away. And what happens after that? You have people coming and paying condolences, but then not being able to actually share the burden of grieving. It comes much later in that whole process, right? Of course, if the death was sudden, it was unexpected, you can't preempt anyone to help you to grieve through it. But I think what often happens is that people often just tell the people who are mourning the loss of a loved one to stay strong, to be strong. And maybe that's not the best message to give someone, to just say, stay strong, be strong. What does it mean to be strong? Does it mean that you don't cry and you don't process your grief? Or does it mean being strong means that you actually reach out to someone close to you and say, I really need to talk about this, or at least I need a shoulder to cry on, even if it means you don't say anything, but you're just present and I want to cry for a few hours and just really pour out. That person is able to provide you that kind of emotional support is much more than what you can do alone lah, in house. Especially if that person has lived with a loved one for so many years, suddenly that person is missing. It can be a very lonely process. So oftentimes, when it comes to this kind of situation, people suffer alone, and it has a lot of effects on the person's well-being, mentally, spiritually, uh, I guess physically in a way also. If they don't eat or they don't do the things that they usually do, their routine is off. Um, and we don't realize that because sometimes we think the message to say to be strong, to stay strong, means to carry on in spite of all of these things. But sometimes it's not easy to just go back to life as normal. There's an adaptation process, and learning to adapt to that means acknowledging that, yeah, there has been a loss and certain things will have to change. It's not to do things as per normal, how it was before the person left. So, the people who show up for the funeral, that's probably the only time you see them. And then after that, you're left to pick up the pieces on your own. I find that quite unhealthy in the way society kind of pictures it at the moment. So they admire people who, can do a lot of things like normal, without having to cry and all that. They say that that type of person is strong. But the person who's always crying or is dealing with emotional stress in a way, or that person is weak. But is that really what we understand as strong and weak? Is crying necessarily a bad thing? Is grieving necessarily a negative process? Because if you think about it, we are still human. Even if we say yes, we understand that there's an afterlife and that the soul progresses. It doesn't take away the pain of the loss. So how do people process grief? I think that has not been talked about much, and it affects a lot of people in the society. I think I used to work with a lot of young people in university. We often see cases of depression and anxiety, and people say, oh, like every now and then it's become so common. But has it really become so common, or is it that people are talking about it a bit more than in the past? And whether people do need outlets to process what they're going through, um, because depression and anxiety are also considered taboo. You want to see a counselor or you want to consult a psychiatrist or a therapist, that's also seen as something that's, oh, that means you're not strong. You have a mental issue. But sometimes we do need some forms of, support. And I don't see that very much where people are grieving in isolation. But if you have friends and family around you, more often than not, the recovery process is a lot faster, I would say. It doesn't mean that person completely, does away with the grief, but it helps with the coping mechanism for most people. So, I mean, this is just something I observe with people these days.
Yeah, so like to add on and then maybe like to ask a bit further to explore a bit more. So yeah, just now one of the things was you mentioned like people would say like to stay strong, and for those who are grieving, it takes a lot of understanding, even though we're already in such a difficult situation. But then like to take it from a place that like people are like trying to comfort, but then they don't know what to say lah. So that's maybe one of the questions that I want to ask. Like, what do you think? Having gone through this ourselves, like what are the like certain maybe things you think are maybe better to say for those who wants to say something lah. Of course, uh, another way is like you don't have to say anything lah, like just give the person a hug, or like just being next to them is another way. But like if you want to say something, like what are some of the things that people can consider saying? So yeah, that's um one of it. Uh, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so the thing about staying strong also, like for me, I don't know, is it I don't know where am I going with this lah, but I was gonna say like when we are coping with someone who passed away, who have lived like quite a life, like maybe an adult or more elderly person, um sometimes the pain doesn't sting as much as when someone a bit younger passed away lah. I don't know, is it because of like you feel uh the potential and possibilities being taken away from this person, or like because like those who are a bit elder, at least there's this understanding that he or she have um lived lah in life, and I have experienced some things, but like my wife and I, we were also reflecting lah on like our own family as well. Is it because my daughter passed away at 1 years old, so it's like there's so much more that she has not done and will not be able to do. So like I don't know whether that also um uh play like is also a factor lah in how much it stings. But I don't know where am I going with this um so because just now we were talking about okay things to say and no um so I don't know whether like for those who has like a loved one who passed away who is a bit younger, like for me, because I felt like um maybe it's also the way that I grieve is that I need to cry it out lah, but then in my own um space lah, that like I don't know why, but I cannot show people. So like that's one thing that I think about now lah, when people has someone who passed away, like to tell them that make sure that you also have your time to cry it out lah, that you also need to grieve however way it is that you grieve, but to make sure that you grieve, and if you need to cry, you make sure you cry it all out lah. Because like that's also what I told my family lah, that I need my time alone with Aluna, so that I can cry it all out. So nowadays this is one of the things that I do tell people lah about, especially those that, yeah, someone passed away, like to tell them to make sure that you have the time to grieve and cry if you need to. The other phrase that I am a bit uncomfortable with is this moving on. Like when people say move on, like maybe I'm taking it a bit too literal lah, but when they say move on, it feels like people are telling me to like, put this chapter behind and then now move on, to the next thing. Of course, again, I know the intention is like they're telling us that, yes, this is a very painful episode in your life, but you also need to continue living, and there are other things in life that we need to look into, and life continues and all that. Yeah, we understand lah, but like I don't know, is maybe because I'm very attached to words. So then like this phrase of like moving on disturbs me lah. It's like you're asking me to like keep my memory of my daughter behind, like very kacau a bit lah. I don't know whether so like now what I say to like my wife and myself is like we need to learn to live with the memories of the passing of a loved one lah. So we still need to continue to live on, but then like also um the these beautiful memories that we have with the loved ones also is uh with us lah. So we live with these memories. So maybe this phrase, the words are a bit less offending to me lah. Yeah. So yeah, any like things that you think like any suggestions people can say? What are things that people can say if they want to say something like that you think are maybe more, what's the word um more appropriate, a more befitting thing to say lah during like this kind of period, other than just stay strong or move on or
I was actually just thinking also because when my father passed away, I was actually very young. So I don't really remember much how we deal with it, except that we really had to move on. Like we had to go to school, my mom had to go to work, and we had to figure out how things would be. So I guess we didn't have much time to really think about being sad or grief. And also maybe just, I guess the recollection of the event of what has happened, the passing of my father only took place like maybe years later. But you only start to think about it because when it happened, I was very young, so I didn't had, or I also don't know how maybe how to deal with it except to know that my father has passed on, and we just all have to find our own ways to cope with it, I guess. But then when my grandmother passed on, I was already a bit older. I think so the way I deal with it was also very different. Like I know that she wants us to really think about how not to waste our life, how to spend our time in this life better. So we there's not so much of being sad, but rather like joyful that she's free of the pain kind of thing. And I guess also maybe for a younger person who passed away, I had a few friends also other than you lah, that had their baby or toddler who passed away. Um, Maybe some due to sudden illness. Actually, most of it are due to sudden illness that cannot uh that are not able to be helped with at that moment of time, or there's no technology to help with at that moment of time lah. What I see, what we actually, when I talked with them, what we actually came up was that actually move on doesn't mean to let go also, but rather that we just continue taking our moment to feel to the need uh to to let go, the need to think back about all the memories we had. Yeah, even if you want to create stuff that actually, or videos, or even stuff like videos, write up, uh I guess photo books also, just to keep those memory in place. I guess we should be encouraged to do so also lah. And I guess for me, I find I used to say to people who pass away, condolences on the passing of your loved ones. But then I realized that's actually very uh like very not it's just a phrase, like it's not very personal. There's no not much comforting. So I started to also change my message accordingly lah. Some, if it's a very close friend, I'll just say, hey, I heard of passing of your loved ones. I just pray for your family. Let me know if you need me to do, if you need anything. Some they will just tell me directly, hey, can you do this for me? Like last year, I think at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. somebody said, I need to prepare this booklet lah with prayers and all this. Can you help me? So like for the next 3 hours, we just sit there looking for the quotations and writings in the different languages. And some are not those, the ones that are not so close, like maybe acquaintance or just friends. I will also just say thank you. I will just say thank you for letting me know, but can I also know the name of the person who passed away if I don't know them that close lah. Then I said I would like to offer a prayer I would like to offer a prayer for the progress of the soul. And those who are somewhat close but not really close kind, I just maybe send a message and say, your who and who and who has just been remembered in prayers. And sometimes I will share a prayer, like depending on the person who passed away. I will just share a prayer that say, I find this prayer uh, comforting. And I just said, I just said this prayer for the for who and who lah, like for your uncle, for your grandmother, or for your for your nephew or niece, just to let you know lah. Yeah. So I do it for all the friends lah. It's not just whether by high friends or not, but all my friends also like that. So, and I think it's yeah, maybe later on they will not say anything at that moment, like they won't reply at immediately, but maybe sometimes 1 month later, they just say things on yeah, thank you, it's much appreciated for the prayers. Please continue to pray. Yeah. Or or sometimes when I ask, can I have the name of the person who passed away, they will give me, and then they say thank you for offering to pray on it for on behalf of this person. Yeah.
I think for me, after my mom's passing, it was probably easier for me to relate to people who had also lost their parents. Um, so then you know, usually if it's someone who's really close to me, I would say that, no words can express how this loss has affected you. But rest assured, soul of your father or mother or that loved one has actually um progressed to um like, to the afterlife, and that he or she is soaring in the heavens. And also to remind them that person and the family, I mean the grieving members, and also that person who's passed on, are in our thoughts and prayers. That it's not only that you pray for the soul of the one who's passed on, but you also pray for the family that's grieving, because it's also a difficult time. So always remind them that we are also thinking of them as much as we are thinking of the one who has passed on. Um, I remember there was also this friend, when my mom passed away. Of course, this friend, maybe just offered her condolences, and it was just a standard one lah. Usually, just say, "I'm so sorry for your loss," and all that. Um, a couple of years later, this friend's father passed away, quite unexpectedly lah. So when I went to this friend's house for the wake, right, and also to just pay our condolences, pray for the family. So when I met this friend, she actually said, I didn't understand how you felt at that time when you lost your mother. Now I understand. So then I was like, you don't have to go through it yourself just to understand how a person feels lah.
Yeah.
I don't expect, and no one should expect others to understand the pain lah. But
Yeah.
I felt like she realized at that moment, maybe the things that she had said to people in the past who had lost their parents or loved ones, you just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss. My condolences," and all that. But when it hits you, it changes you completely. You realize that actually there's so much more to it than just saying, "I'm so sorry." So, it's not a club that you enjoy to be in, but then there are people who have lost their parents, and they understand that grief and that pain lah. So like there's a group of us lah, my friends around the same age group. We will support each other. If we go to the cemetery, if we offer prayers, we will go and visit each other's parents' graves, and then we would send messages like, "Oh, we were there. We prayed for your father, we prayed for your mother," and then we just support each other that way. It's a little thing, but sometimes it helps to remember that actually death is something that everyone has to go through at some point in their lives lah. We all have to face it, a death of a close one. So it's just a matter of whether it hits you immediately or takes a long time to get there. But you don't have to say you understand a person who's going through a loss. But I think telling that person that you are thinking of them and you are remembering them helps a lot um in that moment, that the person doesn't feel like they're alone that whole journey lah. um so I also remember some of the things that friends have also told me. They reassured me that they are reachable, like what Sumi was saying, like, how can I help? What can I do to support you? Um, I've also offered that to some of the people that I know. I was one of my former students. Her brother uh, was autistic and had Down syndrome and was also going through, I think, leukemia. It was a very complicated, combination because he was non-verbal, couldn't speak, and obviously he was going through a lot of pain. So this student, obviously, she has a very unique circumstance. Her younger brother has got this kind of condition. Um, and I just offered, I said, if there's anything we want to talk about, just all. But she didn't call me, but I think she had a very strong support group. Her family also is very spirited, like that sense. They are also surrounded by the Christian community, and they are, you know, uh, well well grounded in the sense that they know that the the grief has to be processed to be shared. So in fact, found out about this young boy's passing through the mother's social media, because the my student herself, she doesn't post things, but her mother tags her in the post, and that's how I also knew, like, when the boy had passed on. So yeah, it's just offering this kind of assistance or support. Or even if they don't take up the offer, you don't take offense to the fact that, oh, why this person didn't call me, why this person didn't tell me more about this, that. But just saying we are there for you if you ever need us. I think that helps a lot. And also reminding them that you pray for them, for the family, for the loved one who has passed on. Uh, really gives that person some form of solace lah, more than just saying I'm sorry, or uh, yeah, stay strong, just move on lah. Just one last thing about moving on. Again, people mean well. For people who have lost their spouse, like my father's case, right? Sometime after my mom passed away, some guys asked my
Oh
dad,
no.
you want to consider finding another wife? I don't think that's something you can ask or suggest lah. To each their own. Different people
Yeah.
decide how they want to move on with life. I know some people who have lost their spouse, they remarried, and it has blossomed into a very enriching family life. But there's some people who also carry on without remarrying. I don't think it's in anyone's position to go and suggest that to the person who's a widow or widower lah. I personally, I don't think it's something to go and bring out and say, hey, can move on already lah. I think 1 year is enough. You can go and start looking. I think just leave that person to themselves how they want to decide their life lah. You know, I know people mean well. They say, oh, maybe you get lonely, you need a partner or
Yeah.
something. But however it is that they wish to do this, I think better not to just go and suggest out of the blue lah. Yeah.
Recently I went for the funeral, right? Then there was this group of uncles lah, actually, and I just thought it just made me think also, like how what I normally do lah. Like they came earlier for the funeral, even though before the family arrived. I was there earlier, so that's why I could see this lah. Then I saw them coming down from the car, and then they carrying these huge bundles of flowers. And then they all like, okay, okay, you go here, you go there, like this, giving direction. Then I was like, what are they doing? Like, and then I started realizing they were actually putting they actually bought bundles of flowers and they are dividing the work to put into the to put in the grave, or the tombstone of the ones who are already buried there. And then later on, I had a chat with some of us, with them. I said, "Oh, uncle, why you uh, why you always do this?" He said, some of them who passed away and are buried here, maybe their loved ones are also passed away already, and some of their their next of kin is not living nearby, maybe some out of country, out of the state. So every time we come here to pray or for a funeral, so his wife passed away, I think 2 years ago, the year before, or maybe it was it, yeah, the year before. And he said, like, every time I come here to pray and visit my wife, he said, I use the word, I home visiting everybody also, because this will be my future home as well. I'm like, so, uncle. Then he's like, yeah lah. So I decided to bring flowers. When you go home visit, you cannot go empty-handed ma. So we will come, bring flowers, make everybody happy. So then I was just also thinking to myself lah, like, actually, when I go to the burial ground to pray for whether my grandparents or my father, actually I don't really do things also. Uh, Maybe we just say a prayer. I'll just offer a prayer. But then I think the uncle was just saying, yeah, the dead cannot see, the alive also cannot see, but actually it would be nice also lah, just to give a flower, so that others will also know, or there are people who are remembering them as well, the ones who passed away. So it's not just their family members. Oh, no, so this group of uncle always, uh, they always go to many funerals. I really, anytime people pass away, they'll be there one. So at first I always thought that, oh, maybe they have a lot of time, but then after talking to them recently, I realized that it's not about a lot of time, or they are free or not free. It's just that they felt sometimes it's uh sometimes maybe just being there is what the family wants, rather than sending a condolences message. And sometimes, not going there, not even saying a prayer, or in Chinese funeral, you give the, what's it, Pekim, I
Fighting
don't know what is
the
it.
white gold.
I don't know what is it quite English lah. But then by giving that, sometimes they are not asking for that. Sometimes they just want somebody, other than their families, to be there with them, just to support them. And that itself is that moment of support lah. Yeah. That's something I learned from them recently.
I think also like now with text messages and social media, like in a way it removes a bit of the awkwardness of having to come face to face with a person who just had someone passed away, and sometimes we want to say certain things but we don't know whether or not to say it in front of them. I guess like this also, so that even if we are not there in person, like say we are in other countries or um somewhere else, we can still be connected. Where I'm going with this is also like yeah, like having like personal messages that we want to say to those who are grieving. These text messages helps lah. Sometimes the things that we want to say, we don't know how people will take it if we say it in person. Like, but then like making sure those who are grieving knows that we are thinking of them, or uh, would like to say certain things to them. Yeah, this text messages helps lah. I think I have like one last question to ask, and then I think that's about it for the episode, and it will be about yeah, what would you like to say to those who are like going through this period lah of having the passing of a loved one. What would you say to them? I feel like now that I am asking this question, I feel like we covered quite a lot about about what we would say, but it's okay. Uh, if you want to repeat what you have mentioned again also, it's okay.
Maybe just say I guess it's okay to take the time you need to go through that grieving period. But then also maybe also need to not just grieve after the utmost feeling of being sad or very very deep in grief. Maybe we should also think of how to celebrate life lah. Because celebrate life in the sense that not I celebrate my life and then go a happy kind of party, but rather like also uh learning what are some of the things uh, uh that bring joy from my relationship with the person who passed away. I think it's one step lah. I think another thing I was actually reflecting also, actually in Malaysia, because maybe of the different cultural background, we don't really have much books or even podcasts or even I don't know audio stuff that actually uh helps a person go through this period of time. Just now as I was talking with you, I just realized I just remember this book that I read lah. I don't know whether you can see the book or not, but I will try to. Can you see this book?
Everybody dies. Okay. Children's book for grown-ups. Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a I found it by chance in one of the books there lah. But then I thought when I was looking in the content, I thought it was a very interesting way of how they look at death, and I was also reflecting like how do we actually talk about death uh with the children, with the children youth or youth in our society or even adults lah. Maybe adults is really harder because we already have formed certain ideas about death. But then I just felt this was a very interesting book because it gives a concept about death to children, to all people, anybody who reads it. Like I just say, every living thing must someday die. When what happened when something died, like say they give like cute animals die, so does scary ones. And then when the goldfish die, they float to the top of the tank. And then there's a part where also they say, what are some give some examples of diseases that could be killing you right now, so they have a page for that. Then so someday you will die too, they actually put a tombstone and ask you write your name there and what you want people and then what you want to be written on a tombstone that people will remember you for. I just thought it was interesting, and they also had this page that like exciting careers in the field of death. So they put like those careers that are related to death. So there's this thing called a mortician, a taxidermist, uh drone operator, executioner. Then so I was just actually also reflecting like in our society, we actually we don't have such material or such a resource to help the young ones to cope about death actually, because it's a taboo, or maybe it's not something to be talked about in the community lah. Yeah. Yeah, actually I showed this book to many people, but they all like, don't why are you reading this kind of book? And I was like, but it's I just thought it's an interesting book to think about how other people think about death, and you can help a younger person to deal with also.
Because
Yeah,
it's
I think that's what I wanted to share also lah. Like when somebody is I actually wondering when somebody is trying to deal with this moment of passing or death of a loved one, or the death concept of death itself. Actually, what are some of the things in available for this person to turn to, except a loved one or somebody who have experienced the same thing lah. And I think I realized there's not much things, not many things in our community that are able to do so lah. So maybe yeah, I guess for me is that whoever who's going through this, you just need, if you need to take the time to create something for yourself, yeah, just do so lah. I know someone who has a friend who lost their spouse. Every year will go for a personal trip without anyone to somewhere that they both love or wanted to go. Yeah, that's all for me.
Yeah. Maybe for me, I just want to say that grief is something that doesn't go away completely, like whatever stage of your life, even if many years have passed, I think it will still sting. You know, Sheng Jie was talking about the stinging pain. Um, Quite recently, yeah, I went back to work and I was preparing the classroom for start of school year, and my dad came along to help me to just move the chairs and tables, move the furniture and all that. So one of my colleagues, she came by. I saw her, so I was like, "Hey, come, say hi to my dad." So she walked in and she saw my dad helping to clean up the classroom. And then she was like, "Hello, uncle." And then she started, choking up tears, like she started crying. Then she said, I'm so sorry. And then she kind of said it reminded her of her father, who was also uh briefly in Brunei at the time, uh, and helping her out when she was, younger. Like it was many years ago when the father came and he passed on after not long after that visit. So she just said that seeing my dad kind of brought back those memories of him and her lah. She also has this close relationship with her dad. So, you would think that after so many years, a person lost their loved one, the thing just goes away, right? But you never know what things might trigger and just bring back those memories. And I think that's just how grief is. It's not like, yeah, of course, people say time heals everything, but time does not cure the grief. It just makes it um easier to bear lah over the years. But when it comes up, it just comes up. Um, and it's not something you need to suppress, lah, I would say. And I think that's perfectly normal thing, because um a little bit like how they describe Inside Out, the films, right? This core memories, those things are part of our lives, and the death of someone is a very significant moment in life. So you can't just throw away the core memory and say, "Oh, I forgot it completely," unless you have complete amnesia lah, something. But yeah, even if it's buried somewhere, it may resurface itself, and in unexpected moments. The other thing that maybe we also have to remember is that as much as we mourn the loss of a loved one, we also have to remember that we have to appreciate the ones that are with us still. So like since my mom passed away, I also realized that I need to focus more on spending time with my dad. And if we are stuck in that moment where we only mourn the loss of the one that we've lost, and we don't appreciate the ones that we have around us, then we also lose the time, that precious moments and memories that we have. So yeah, again, we don't take people for granted. But even more so when you realize, like, yeah, how hard it is to lose someone very close to you. If you still have the others around you, you should cherish those moments together, because sometimes people, they say, "Oh, I'm too busy for this, too busy for that, no time to visit, family members, no time to spend time with them." Sometimes they say, "Hey, let's go out for a meal," or whatever. You say, "Oh, no lah, no lah, busy," and all that. You get so caught up with your daily, hustle, whatever you're doing, your jobs, that you forget that, yeah, these are the people who may not be with you for a very long time. So if that's how you operate, then you will regret when that person leaves lah. Then it again is a whole cycle of like taking that person for granted. Right? So if you suffered a loss once, just remember that there are those who are around you who are still alive, and try and build those memories together with them. Yeah. Because you never know lah. it could be that person or it could be you first. We also don't know. So whichever it is, we
True.
need to make precious memories together lah. Yeah. So that's just something I want to share.
I think for me, so maybe 2 points and then I'll elaborate a bit. I think one is, yeah, I think you also touched on it. The one on like giving yourself time, time that you need. Knowing that, yeah, some people are able to, I don't want to say the word recover, but then like they are able to, like some can recover faster, or like some slow, or maybe not recover lah. Like some people can cope. I don't know. I don't know what's the word lah. What do you know what I mean? Like some people get out of that immense grief period faster, some slower, and it's fine. It doesn't mean that if you get out of it faster, doesn't mean that you love your loved one less than those who are grieving longer. Yeah, it's just, yeah, different people I think needs different time, and also how expressing grief is different from uh, different people express grief differently. So don't feel bad if you are not crying as much as others. It also doesn't mean that you love them less than the others. Um, but also I think it's important to know yourself uh, well enough that you do not let yourself get into a very dark place, because grief can, if you are not careful with it, you can sink into a very dark place, and that's not a good place to be. So to know yourself and like know when you are getting there, what you need to do lah, whether it's surround yourself with loved ones, or to talk to somebody, or um say prayers, or I don't know, but to know yourself lah, what is it that can help you, and to do that now. Or if you don't know what to do, to know somebody who would know what to do. So like, yeah, so the other one was to know people who um can relate to what you're going through. Sometimes they know like what are things that can be done in these times. So yeah, and also, yeah, give yourself the time and chance to express your grief lah, whether it's in your own private space, or um whether it's sharing fond memories with others, going through videos, pictures, um yeah, surrounding yourself with people at times, or sometimes to be alone. Yeah, there's no fixed way of going through grief, but of course there are a few things that are more helpful than others lah. Okay, thank you, Sumei. Thank you, Delaney, very much for being part of this episode. Hopefully,
Thank you
those
for
who
having us.
yeah, hopefully those who uh watch this video, hopefully it helps them a bit. There will be yeah, that's already achieved lah, the purpose of the video, if it does help. If it does not help, then give us comments in the comment, like what is it that you think would help. Ah, done. Ugh.